Hi, second graders. We are going to continue talking about polygons today, which are those 2D shapes that can be drawn on a piece of paper. And earlier this week, we were learning about how 2D shapes can have sides, which are going to be those straight lines on a shape, and they can also have a vertex, or they can have vertices if it's more than one. That's going to be that outside point where the two sides come together. So we've been learning a lot of new words that go along with our shapes, more than students might have thought when we first mentioned we're going to learn about circles and squares, right? Well, today we actually have a new word that we are going to be introducing, and that word today is angle. And it says when two sides of a shape meet, they form an angle. Kind of sounds like a vertice, but this time it's a little bit different. An angle is actually going to be on the inside of a shape, and it's going to be where those two sides come together. And you can notice on the picture that we have here of this triangle, this shape has three angles. There is one here on the inside, one here, and then also one down here. And they have gone through and they circled each of those angles to show where they are. So today on our paper, we're going to do the same thing. We are going to look at each of these shapes, and the only thing that we have to count are the number of angles on each of these shapes. We don't have to write down the sides or the vertices, just the angles. Mrs. Grant, do you think we can do it?
I think so.
All right, why don't we take a look at number one? Would you like to try and circle some of the angles that you see on that shape?
Sure. When I was looking at this picture, I noticed it kind of just looked like they circled the vertices. So we're kind of going to be doing the same thing, but instead of focusing on the point, we're just focusing on the area of space right inside of that point. So you're going to be still circling the vertices.
Yep.
That also counts kind of as the angles.
You got it.
So this right here is a bad marker. I'm going to throw it away.
Why don't you try that one?
Let's try this one. So this one, I just so happen to have circled the vertex and the angle, which is the space inside where the two lines connect.
Kind of reminds me of a mouth.
Yeah,
that's open.
that part right here
Yeah.
is the angle. So one angle, two angles, three angles, four angles, five angles.
Good job. And I like how you wrote that number nice and clearly on the line as well. So not only do you have to circle the angles, you also have to write the number down below. Now, I do have a little challenge question for you.
Okay.
Because I love a good challenge. If this has 5 angles, and I'm noticing there's also 5 sides, do you remember the name for a shape with 5 sides?
I know 5 is pent. Pentagon.
Pentagon. Yeah, this shape is a pentagon. If you want to challenge yourself to write the name of the shape on there, you can.
Ooh.
You don't have to, but what a great way to challenge your mind and go back to what we've been learning for the last few days.
What a great idea.
Now, students are going to do the same thing on number 2. They're going to go through and they're going to circle each of those angles. The same thing on number 3 and on number 4. So that shouldn't be too difficult. Let's take a look at the other side of the worksheet. We are going to continue to do the same thing, circling all of those angles, writing the number on the line for all of the next 4 problems. I would be careful with number 8 because there's a couple that if you're not looking carefully, it almost looks like it's not an angle because the mouth is really, really big. But there's actually an angle right here. So don't forget about the ones that look like a really big mouth. Now, down at the bottom, this looks similar to something we did yesterday. We have these dotted lines, or little dots on the paper, I should say, and the directions say, draw more sides to make the shape. Write how many angles. Okay, this time, what shape do we have to draw?
It says a pentagon.
You're pretty good with pentagons.
I am.
How many sides does a pentagon have?
5.
5 sides. Can you go ahead and see if you can draw a pentagon?
I sure can. All right, so we already have 2 sides, so I'm gonna come down here There's the third side. Here's the fourth side, and here's the fifth side. I made it look like home plate on a baseball field.
Yeah, it actually kind of looks like my
or
house.
a house. Yeah.
All right.
So now I'm not done because I also have to write how many angles there are. So I'm going to circle my angles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it has 5 angles. Oh, down here, there's even a spot for it.
You
I didn't
got
even
it.
see that.
It's at the bottom of
All
the
right.
paper. Sneaky. So what do students have to do on the last one?
They have to draw the correct amount of sides a quadrilateral has. A quadrilateral. And then write how many angles, which, hint, hint, is the same amount of sides.
It does. And quadrilaterals, some of them look different than others.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a perfect cube.
Nope.
It just has to have the right amount of sides.
So it might look a little bit more like, say, this rectangle.
Or even.
Could look something like this.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it is a perfect square. I don't know. Because quadrilaterals can take many different shapes, but they have to have those 4 sides and 4 angles.
Yeah.
All right. I think we did a good job
Yeah.
teaching.